way that's real. There's
It's nice with the cheese hat, so where I thought, that's, it's got to be Happy Toast or something. I thought, no, that'll be the onion. And then I kept seeing it, and
We've moved past the need for the onion now because we live in the onion.
It's just real life.
It's just real life. The real world is now more ludicrous than the comedy world.
Yeah.
Anyway, talking about ludicrous, the Labour Party, stonky majority, SNP not doing so well.
I mean, there's a few things to say. I mean, firstly, if you actually look at the levels of vote, the SNP fell a bit, but not by that much. But this is a deviancy of first past the post system. We're living in a multi-party system, but our electoral system isn't coping with it. So the Labour Party got, 34% of the vote?
It's very low turnout, which was expected.
Yes.
Historically low. It was the second lowest since 1918.
So, I mean, part of that is the voter ID. Yeah, that's definitely playing a part.
And part of that is what we talked about on the previous episode. No one fucking cares.
Sick of it, yeah.
Yeah, my brother's girlfriend texted me after the last podcast came out saying, "Hi Laura, I've just listened to the podcast and I think you should make a simpler version for simple people who don't know who Keir is."
How would he not?
Well, I think because when Keir Starmer comes on television, he has the air of the guy who's there to introduce the guy. So you would just sort of
could well be onto something then. I mean, he is very, I'm trying to think of something to dispute that, but I've got nothing. Yeah.
When's the real Prime Minister coming on?
There was a
fluffer.
There was a fucking rash of articles that came out about people saying that they were finding Keir Starmer sexy. I was like, right, this has to stop. Politicians are not sexy.
These articles, apart from Keir Starmer, is the only person I could think would have...
Keir Starmer's wife.
Kayla Moran, I think, actually was one of them.
Forgotten her name now, the former leader of Plaid Cymru, and she had voice like Audio Chocolate. What was her name?
Oh, Leanne.
Leanne Wood. There we go.
Leanne.
That's a blast.
Did you get Leanne Woods?
She did. She'd got this wonderful Welsh accent.
That was 2015 election. Yeah. I think she was on.
She was on the debate, and her and Nicola Sturgeon and Natalie from the Greens were all just being very comradely with each other because they weren't really competing against each other. They were just kind of supporting each other and being very kind of female and supportive and then stuff.
If you search Leanne Wood's name on the Angry Scotland account, it will just be like me going, "Why?" So anyway, Keir Starmer, if you think Keir Starmer's sexy, I would just jump off a building.
I wouldn't go that far. I can see, like, if Keir Starmer was, if you're in high school and he was your pal's dad, like, he's still got his hair. He just looks like a normal guy, whereas most of your pals' dads are like bloated and bald, and so I can see him being attractive in your dad's actually alright, by the way, like in that kind of way. But in terms of like if you're looking at every man in the public eye right now and going, Keir Starmer's a bit of alright.
He's just lucky that he's in a parliament that is full of fuck ugly people, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So like, on a scale, a spectrum.
Look, it's not that no politicians are sexy, right? Angela Rayner's quite sexy.
Yeah, she actually is.
I think she's gonna have that job sooner than anyone thinks. I think he'll be lucky to last 4 years at this. I think she's definitely going to be the next Prime Minister.
There's a thing that Angela Rayner does when she was at the dispatch box. She'd have asked a question, and you could see that she could, like a shark, she detected a particle of blood in the water. And there was this little look on her face, and I thought, oh, God.
Yep.
Angela.
Yeah.
Because she just looked like she was really, really enjoying it.
To be fair to her, she's sort of an actual proper Labour type. Her background, she's sort of what Keir Starmer's faking being. She's quite legit. So I think if she was to take over the party, it wouldn't quite be a Jeremy Corbyn level of left, but that's more recognisable to me as the Labour Party than it would be under Keir Starmer.
Listen,
do they get on?
No.
Yeah, because I think
we tried to get rid of it.
Touched on this for like a split second in the last episode.
No, we tried to get rid of her.
Yeah,
can't because she's elected.
But we never elaborated on that.
No, they don't get on. And I found it really, really interesting that as soon as they've got into power, somebody was briefing against her. That's got to be from him. No, they don't get on. is my understanding.
Drama.
I mean,
Speaking of Mr. Corbyn, he obviously got more votes than Starmer as an independent. And I saw an interview with him after it when he was being asked about it. And just, it was one of those moments where I just think, God, for English Labour supporters, you've got to be watching that, and it must be like, you know, you've broken up with your ex and now you're with this new guy, and then you realise that you've made a huge mistake, and actually your ex is wonderful and he's the one that got away, because everything he was saying, I was like, oh, Jeremy, he's just great. He's just fantastic. Like,
I'm going to say, right, Jeremy Corbyn's foreign policy is fucking terrible, but his domestic policy is wonderful.
I think my take on him has always been that I think that he is not a good leader, but no. I think that he's. I think Mary Black, if she'd stayed about, I think would have fallen into this exact same category of you need that honest person backbench that's going to stand up and just fucking say what has to be said. But when you're in the captain's chair, it's a bit of a different game, and I think he would have really struggled. And you're right, particularly on the international stage, I think that would have been a problem. However, I still think, though, that at the end of the day, he did lose in 2019. That's okay. I still think Labour would have been better just staying the course. Because he's been pretty right.
He actually got more fucking votes.
Yeah.
Like, the Labour Party got more votes when they fucking lost dramatically than they did this time when they fucking won. And that is another deviance of the first past the post system. We need proportional representation.
I agree.
So, I mean, when we want to talk about the SNP getting fucking plastered across the fucking walls like a smear of raspberry jam this time, the truth of the matter is our vote fell a bit. A whole editorial vote moved to Labour in Scotland. And because of first past the post, we've been demolished. But we had almost every MP at one point, but we still only had about 40-odd% of the vote. First past the post is not representative. It suited us for a while, and now it doesn't suit us. The truth of the matter is proportional representation is really important. When you have proportional representation, you look at Holyrood, for instance, the SNP has basically like half the seats? Just under half the seats with just under half of the vote. And in any other country, you would form alliances. You'd have lots of small parties. You'd form alliances with reasonably like-minded parties to get things done. But we have this, I mean, as we discussed last time, we have this fucking seismic thing of unionist, non-unionist, and everybody falls along those lines, and therefore we're at stasis. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the Senate in Wales, because I think Labour are probably going to get a pasting in 2026. Labour have been in charge in the Senate all the time since devolution occurred. And with the scandals that have overtaken them, I think they're probably going to lose ground, probably to Plaid.
Yeah. I don't think that it's, again, I've said this in the previous episode, to sort of de-SNPify the movement of Scottish independence, I think is a step in the right direction. So I think this actually might be, in the long run, one of the best things that could have happened. I think that it was necessary for them to take a bit of a hit. And you're right in the sense that it's not a total disaster, but obviously with first past the post, optically, it does look like that.
Yeah.
But I think that somebody had to come along and kick them and say, look, the times have changed. We're not doing the 2014 to 2024. That's 10 years.
A pal of mine said, well, they're all getting a bit comfortable and this, that, and the other. Like, yeah. I'm going to disabuse people of that notion, because if you know what MPs who live in the north of England or Scotland or, the far reaches go through in terms of the amount of fucking around up and down the country they've got to do. You think about if you've got a business trip, you think about how fucking tired you are. Imagine having a business trip every fucking week. The hours they work are absolutely enormous. The hours that Parliament sits are mental, and then they've got a whole load of fucking constituency stuff on top. A good MP will probably be working maybe 60 or 70 hours a week. Some of that will be travelling time, but travelling's fucking exhausting. And the idea, they're paid well, but they put up with a lot of fucking shit. They've got fucking journalists going through their bins. They've got all sorts of crap. We need to I want to be a little bit kinder towards our elected representatives, because I think actually it's become worryingly dangerous for them. I mean, we've had 2 assassinations of our elected representatives in, the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Last 8 years. It's a shit job.
I think that, definitely the way that we on this podcast have talked about issues with SNP, the Yes movement, whatever, it's usually done quite, I would think, constructive criticism with a bit of funny in it. But when you do talk to people on the street, you will meet people that will use language which it's very dehumanising, not in a comedic sense. But I think that is fair comment. That social media's done a lot of that. That's a lot of it is to do with that sort of run of social media, and I think that there were people like us that would have done that in a kind of funny sort of way, and other people that we don't quite know where that line is. And there's problems on both sides of this. It's not just the yes or the no, but either one. Like the dehumanising language about unionists, politicians, 100% happens on the yes side, vice versa, with no side thinking that all the SNP are just monsters or whatever. I think that's a fair comment, but I do think in the long run, though, are we taking this as an opportunity to reset?
Absolutely,
I think would be a good thing. In full transparency, it turns out the Greens were standing here, and I did vote for them, just so you know. So that's just indicative again of maybe I probably wasn't the only one that might have taken that option out. They were standing quite a lot in different areas, and I think that getting more of a collaboration within the movement, I'm really hoping that, I don't want it to be Salmon's party, but some kind of centrist to centre-right representation comes into the Yes movement that can be not connected to the Turkish state broadcaster or some madness like this. It's something that people that have slightly more conservative views economically, for example, have kind of got an area and space to go to.
Because it's not like those people don't exist. I mean, there's a huge chunk of people who vote Labour who are in favour of Scottish independence. There's a not unreasonable amount of people who vote for the SNP who are not in favour of Scottish independence, but just kind of like the policies and like them domestically. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in 2026 at Holyrood. Firstly, I think we saw in the kind of 2000s that the Scottish electorate was perfectly competent enough to divine between a first-past-the-post system and a proportional system and vote one way in one. And so they were voting Labour at first-past-the-post for Westminster and voting SNP and Green at Holyrood. And we had quite a different complexion, in terms of the 2010 vote. We had very different complexion in those two things. It was the same people voting, and they were thinking, well, I'm voting, I like the SNP for Holyrood, but they're probably not going to win the Westminster seat, so I'll vote Labour to make sure it's not Tory. People are smarter than we give them credit for. Not all of them, but a lot of people are smart than we give them credit for in terms of divining those two systems. Secondly, a couple of years in, it'll be interesting to see exactly how much love there is for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna say, so far, I actually think it's going reasonably well. Watching David Lammy shaking hands with Netanyahu made me sick in my own mouth, but he did also go and see the Palestinians.
Just before we skirt on, this is important, because one thing I did notice is Keir has gone on a fucking PR blitz tour since this win. And I was thinking, right, if I just got in the office, I'd be like, right, if you don't see me for the first 4 weeks, especially you're coming in after 10 years plus of Tory rule, I'd be like, first thing, damage report. What the fuck are we dealing with here?
That's what you've got ministers for. That's not how it works. The Prime Minister doesn't have to do that much.
Well, but this is the thing, but I don't know if when he's PR touring in that way, that's where my head went to. I think you've got more important things domestically to be worrying about right now. What are you doing over here? And I don't know if maybe other people are looking at it like that as well. I just would have thought that, coming off the back of that disaster that's been in charge for so long, you would maybe want it to be more, let's look inwards and get our own house in order first.
Or at least let's give the impression that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Whereas if he was more like, he's sort of out there swaggering about trying to...
No, I mean, you guys know I'm not a Labour voter, but I'm not unhappy with what I've seen so far with regards to what they're doing. The appointments have been good. He's appointing intelligent people for some key roles, putting Jess Phillips in as a sort of minister in the Home Office. She's going to be given a brief over domestic violence, basically. That's a fucking star appointment. Putting Timpson in charge of the prisons. Timpson's the fucking key cutting. Yeah, I know, the key cutting fucking shoe repair people have done more to rehabilitate prisoners than any fucking government agency in the last fucking 20 years. That's a good appointment. Put Fiona Hill in charge of the Strategic Defence Review. Now, if you don't know who Fiona Hill is, just look her up. She's from the northeast of England. I've got a total fangirl thing for Fiona Hill. She's a Russia expert. She's the person, she was that weird fucking Geordie voice that you heard. She's not a Geordie, she's from the northeast of England. At the Trump hearings, talking about the fact that the Ukraine phone call with Trump and Zelensky, when it was basically trying to get him to investigate Biden's family for to get the missiles that he needed. She is an absolute brilliant mind, a Russia expert, a Russian speaker, and they've put her in charge of the Strategic Defence Review. That is a fucking genius appointment, because that's what we need. That means that they're fully conscious of the threat of Russia. I'm really, really happy with these things. I'm very, very happy with these things. And it feels like, I mean, the refunding of the United Nations agency that was on the ground in Gaza, which the Tories, it was just a complete political move to defund. So there's some good stuff happening here. Now, I still don't like it. I worry about what we've seen so far in terms of how ruthless he is with people. But I'm not unhappy with what I'm seeing so far, and it's such a refreshing change after the fucking shambolic clown car of grifters that we've had in charge for the last 14 years. That being said, that doesn't change my core beliefs that the monarchy's wrong, that we should have, that Scotland should be an independent fucking nation. There's everything to play for 2026. People will probably be a little bit bored. There is hopefully better turnout for 2026. We might even have the voter ID law repealed by that point. And probably you get a kind of midterms factor that you get in America, where whoever wins the presidency gets a kicking.
I think that's what I think what's going to happen is that he is going to take a kicking. And I think a lot of and we talked about this before, the last episode, about, the usual speech about we've all got to kind of, tighten our belts, do all this stuff, because we have to live with the inertia of the Tory disaster for a bit. And I think he'll take all the hits for that. And I think Angela Rayner on year 4, I think he'll go and she'll go into the position. And I think that she will actually do very well, because to your point, I think that the ministers so far, they're steadying the ship. But I think the leader is the wrong guy, but I think she might be the right one. And this is going to be a bit of a challenge for the SNP side of things, because I feel that we haven't maybe replenished the talent pool. So now we're actually up against pretty stiff competition here. And that's really what you're establishing, going like, this isn't a bunch of fucking grifting idiots now you're standing against. These are people that it's going to be harder for you to protest against, because they're actually somewhat competent. So I think that's where the whole strategy, well, really what we should, in my opinion, have been doing for the last 10 years was kind of prepping for what you predicted years ago. This is going to be a Labour government. This is all going to happen underneath. And I think that we have been on autopilot for a very long time in the movement, and it's not really evolved essentially at all from what I can see since 2014 in its approach.
My view of why Scotland should be an independent nation is simply that there's, I don't even think England is one country.
Yeah, I know. I would agree.
So I think smaller nations can just be more nimble.
Yeah.
And it's not anything to do with painting my face and my arse blue or anything to do, with anything like that. I just think Scotland, and if Scotland wanted to subdivide, even if the fucking Shetlands wanted to be independent, have at it. That's for them to decide, not me. And similarly with I've often joked that I think Yorkshire might be independent before we are, but there are subdivisions that maybe work, and maybe it doesn't have to be that we're fully independent. Maybe it's that we're federalised.
Yeah, I think the federalisation option now, I think that general election result, you're right, it's not an enormous dent in it, but I think optically, I think the sort of agreement would be that if the SNP did not return, the full stack.
And we didn't.
And they didn't, and therefore I think the independence thing has to go off the agenda.
Yeah,
so this is where it would be interesting to retool the movement into more of a, what if it was more of a step?
We were
of a federalisation and then independence came later. Yeah.
The sort of more hardcore element in our movement and on the yes side has pushed and pushed and pushed. So we asked. Well, the answer was no.
Yeah. That group you're referring to there are the problem. That is the core of the issue for the last 10 years.
Now was no, and so it would be rude not to listen. Now, the other thing to say is that and this is just my gut feeling, but I think a lot of Scottish voters this time around just didn't fucking trust England to get the job done.
Yeah.
And who can blame them after the last two elections? So it's all very well saying, oh no, England is going to vote Labour this time, it's going to be a massive majority. Yeah, we fucking heard it all before. We've had 14 years of fucking piss.
Yeah.
So forgive us if this time we just fucking chip in and try and get it done. When there's an inevitable Tory government, voting for the SNP for Westminster seemed like a very, very good bet. When there was a good chance of a Labour government, but nobody felt really... let's face it, did you really feel confident right to the end that England was going to do what everybody said they were going to do? No, I didn't.
No.
I was still really worried that the Tories might somehow fucking sneak through somehow by 9 votes in each constituency. And so I don't blame people. Mm-hmm. And nobody you're not owed anybody's vote. You have to fucking earn it. Now, that's not to say some really, really decent MPs didn't fucking lose their job for some arseholes. Right? Blair McDougall is my fucking MP now. Blair fucking McDougall. Project Fear Cunt is my fucking MP now.
But we did also get rid of...
The guy, he was working for Jim Murphy.
But, I mean, I think that we did also get rid of some SNPs that I think we should have got rid of a while ago. So, I mean, as I'm saying, it wasn't all bad,
No, and Douglas Ross didn't get it.
Yeah, I think...
No, that was very funny.
Yeah.
That's very, very...
I think it was very funny that Joanna Cherry lost her seat, considering how utterly fucking vocal that she has been about blaming everybody else.
Well, she also blamed Nicola when they were both being interviewed on morning television the day after the election, and she sort of made allusions to it being Nicola's fault, and Nicola was like, yeah, I sense that Joanna, obviously Joanna and I have butted heads several times over the years. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But I will also point out that the times that she has been elected have been under my leadership as First Minister, and I am no longer First Minister. So I will just point that out.
K.O.
Yeah.
But that was it. I just thought that it's always the case for the people that get very online and turfy. They completely overestimate how popular they are, and I think that was good. That I think that she needed to know that actually you fucking talk shit for the last 10 years, and now when it's come to crunch time, your own electorate are going, actually, you know what, fuck off, and that's what you get. You reap what you sow.
Speaking of online and turfy, Wes Streeton, the new Health Secretary.
Devil. He is the devil.
Yeah. Has come along saying that the temporary puberty blocker ban, I think, expires in September. No plans to repeal that. Actually plans to make that permanent. He has said pending consultation, but this is like, as much as I in recent years have been extremely apathetic towards Labour, I grew up in the fucking west of Scotland in a post-Thatcher society. My papa worked in the steelworks. My family were all fucking Labour. Like, Labour through and through. Mm-hmm. So I do still, there's like a naive part of me deep inside that would like to hold Labour to a higher fucking standard than to kowtow to culture war bullshit.
And yet here we are.
I just don't know how it's not completely fucking apparent to everybody with a working brain that medical decisions are made by fucking healthcare professionals who are trained in the subject.
Not people who can't blink.
Yeah, this is the only profession I can think of in recent years where if you are a trained professional in this subject, what that means is that your opinion actually matters less than fucking celebrities on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because you're somehow seen as you've been brainwashed.
And
rather than like, this is what you fucking do for a living. You are the professional, you are the expert. That means you actually can't be trusted. What about this children's author? What about the guy who wrote Father Ted?
Fuck off. I know. It's infuriating. It's absolutely...
We've got a subpar comedy writer, divorce, called Graham here. He's the subject matter expert in this.
Yeah, never mind this person who is extremely highly qualified and has been working in the field for 50 years.
He spends his time abusing women on Twitter, telling them that they are misogynists because they're not supporting women. Fuck off, mate.
I just keep thinking.
I've been saying for some period of time that Wes Streeting is the fucking devil. I can still remember it was a few years back, the first time I saw him on TV, and I actually thought he was a Tory. And I remember
becoming a bit of a theme there with the Labour Party.
Yeah. I was watching him, and I remember like feeling really, really uncomfortable, and I couldn't work out what it was. And I realized he doesn't blink enough. He does not blink enough. Next time you're watching him, watch. It's not that he doesn't blink at all. He does. And then sometimes he'll do kind of like 3 in rapid succession when somebody's asked him a difficult question and he's passing it through whatever fucking computer is in the robot. But he doesn't blink.
He's got the George Osborne bad vibes. You're just like, oh, this guy's quite kind of clever, but you're
devil.
fucking evil.
He's the devil.
Do we think he's AI? AI training?
No. Because
I think George Osborne might be. I think I can imagine him having like a kind of robot wife and robot children. I think they just put George in a cupboard for a few years. I think he's going to make a big comeback. I still think he's going to be Prime Minister one day. I've got very, very fucking bad vibes about George Osborne.
I might have to ask you to turn the tape off again, but trust me, George Osborne is not going to be Prime Minister.
Well, I mean...
Cross-dressing? Oh,
but that bit... Oh, come on. We were making...
You mean like the last 2 PAs weren't doing that?
Oh, no, but yeah, like...
Yeah, I know, but that's so
like
well known.
Septum.
We didn't... we're talking about cocaine. I'm going to fucking say it. Like, well, I'm talking about cocaine. And like that, we used to make that joke openly.
George Osborne.
We used to talk about. There was a picture. Whenever he was out doing PR, it'd be him in front of a train. It was like, here's George about to receive his train load of coke for the morning and stuff like this.
I mean, it's not just the cocaine.
He was photographed doing it. I mean, this is not like this is not one of these things you have to avoid discussing. The man has done the drug, or at least has been photographed in the proximity of the drug. He'll clean up and he'll have a big redemption story arc. That's what he'll do. He'll come back and be squeaky clean George.
Before that, we were talking about Wes Streeting.
Who is the devil?
Who is the devil?
I am an atheist, but Wes Streeting is the devil. Maybe, do you know what he actually reminds me of? There's a bit of a season of Doctor Who where John Sim was the master and he's the politician. That's... Do you remember this? It's a few years
I don't watch... The YouTube algorithm keeps trying to say, do you like Doctor Who? And I keep trying to tell it, no, I don't. I don't like the show.
One of my kids was a huge Doctor Who fan. I'm come see, come saw. Some of it's been better than others. I've enjoyed some of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like I hate it. It's not sort of my thing.
I'll stick my neck out there. I hate Doctor Who. Also, just because I'm a massive nerd, so people always just assume that I like it. And
I can't be fannied with the current season at all. I watched one episode and went, yeah. Right.
Did we talk about this before? Because we might have done with a sort of Malcolm Tucker kind of connection on this, but it was the first one that Peter Capaldi was in. And I'd very intermittently seen the show. Some of the episodes are quite... the ones that are sort of standalone. There's one about, I think it's when Matt Smith was doing it, and I happened to watch it. It was about him getting stuck in some sort of living dollhouse. It was quite good. It was like a good beginning, middle, and end little story. But then when Peter Capaldi got the part, I thought, all right, okay. And I imagine this lots of people would have gone, right, we don't normally watch Doctor Who, but this would be quite interesting to see what this guy does, because he's a very good actor in the part. Yeah. And the episode starts up, and I didn't have a fucking clue what was going on. The show made no attempt to give me any grounding or basis of what the fuck was happening. And the dialogue was really weird. It was like characters would just start going, no. And then they'd be like a weird pause. And after a few minutes, like, oh, these are meant to be jokes. But these are all like in-jokes that presumably you'd have to watch like 20 seasons of this fucking show to get. And I thought, this is extremely... We were just actually watching a third season of Picard last night, and how like Laura was not really a Star Trek person, but how completely accessible that was. Just knew exactly what was going on, who everybody was, what was happening. I was very weird how the BBC have developed Doctor Who to be this very kind of
hostile,
walled up. Like, you must buy all the box sets or you will not be able to enjoy this product. Yeah. It's very weird.
Yeah, I sort of drifted away, and one of my children is really into it, and he's always like, oh, and you say blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh. When they were littler, it was a sort of family thing to watch it together. But anyway, there was a season where John Sim, the actor, played the Master, and he was a politician, a very sort of charismatic, sort of proto-fash politician. And every time I see Wes Streeting, that's what I'm reminded of. I just think he is really, really. He gives me the absolute fucking ick, and always from the first moment, I'm just like, oh God, you're bad. You're a bad person. I don't like you. And he doesn't blink enough. I cannot stress this enough. He doesn't fucking blink enough. He stares and stares and stares, and he's got these big, very, very blue eyes. And then eventually he'll blink, and he'll blink 3 times in rapid succession, like he's sort of processing data. And then he won't blink again for fucking ages.
Take a look at a picture of him, see what
He reminds me of one of the engines from Thomas the Tank Engine.
He does. He does have a very Thomas the Tank Engine. He looks like one of the trucks. I don't remember the trucks from Thomas the Tank Engine. You don't think you can imagine that head right on the face of a truck?
I think his face looks CI genuinely sits. I'm just going to say it.
It's a bit
like a reform candidate.
So, speaking of this, I hadn't heard all that chat.
That is a cold... That is a... There's nothing going on behind those eyes. That's a proper...
That man would smother you with a pillow and not even blink.
A horror story.
But no, I hadn't heard about the conspiracy theory about the reform candidates not existing. So, when I went to vote in my area, so I'm like out in the sticks, and I've been living in Glasgow, but I had to go home to vote because that's where I'm registered. So I went, cast my vote, and just saw the reform candidate for my area was Lisa Judge. And I was like, Lisa Judge, I'm going to Google her, because I've never heard of her before.
Yeah.
And for such a disruptive party that fully relies on populism, that's kind of unusual that I've not heard of her, not seen anything on social media.
Yeah.
So I Googled her, and I cannot find a sniff of who this woman is. So I don't think she exists.
Same for us. I can't remember the name of our guy, but it was one of those names that a fucking
random name generator has been deployed.
Matt Brown. Just a fucking
well-known local man, Matt Brown, who no one's ever read.
Yes, a completely ubiquitous name. And there was so I'm an activist, so I was at the count, and after thinking, I can't remember seeing the reform guy on the stage.
Just like a scarecrow, like with a suit onto it.
Because it's a bit weird being at a count, because for the first couple of hours, none of the politicians are there. It's just the activists, and then the politicians turn up when you get close to the end. One of them looking happy and the others looking depressed, because we've all been doing the counting agent stuff, which is where we sit and keep tallies on as the votes are getting counted to have a look at roughly. We get a feel for the ballots as they're being counted, and you can see in real time what's going to occur to basically prepare the candidate, which of the 2 speeches they've written they're going to need. And I was thinking, I don't remember seeing the reform team at all, because that's the other thing. While you're standing at the tables, there'll be people from the other parties there, because we're all doing the same thing. And the serious parties that are in any chance will have counting agents, which is basically, you're standing by the table, you're observing, you're monitoring, you're making sure that the votes are going in the right piles. And then the dickhead candidates will have a little coterie of people, but they won't have a presence at the whole count, because they haven't got the people to do that. I was thinking, I remember the Lib Dems being there, because that was quite funny, because they never had a fucking chance. And I remember the Green, the lassie from the Green Party was there, but they didn't have a full team doing all the county. And obviously the Labour and the Tories were all there. I'm thinking. And then we've got ISP was standing in our seat, which is just an incredibly amusingly named independent.
I can't believe they're still a thing.
They are still a thing.
It's the Independent Socialist Party, isn't it?
Yes.
Something.
They don't seem to realise that they've called themselves an incredibly funny thing. And their candidate...
That's what we call a paradox.
And their candidate, Colette, is just this fucking tragic, annoying figure. But you think they were there, and the Greens were there, and the Liberal Democrats were there, and they didn't know how to say Gifnick. That was really, really funny. Yeah, no, like it was this English Liberal Democrat guy there who was, and he was a Gifnock.
Oh,
so no, mate, listen, Gifnick, say it fast, Gifnick, not Gifnock.
Yeah, Millen,
like
Millen Gavi would be.
Yeah, like a fucking sat nav trying to say it. And I'm thinking, was the Reform like that? Was it like that? And I'm thinking, like, I don't think there was a single person from Reform.
It's amazing if they actually have just made up some people. I remember saying to Pete years ago.
So they, to be fair, they haven't. I mean, I think the thing that really sort of started that rumour was the fact that the photograph of one of them was clearly fucking AI touched up to fuck. Now, I've seen a photograph of the real guy because they did eventually find him. And, I mean, I haven't seen a photo of the real man. I don't blame him for touching up his photo. But...
you guys are reforming your face.
The Lisa Judge character that I've been looking for does not have a photo. She doesn't have a presence on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. On the Reform UK website, her photo was a question mark.
Yeah, well, it's the same with our guy.
Nice mystery opponents.
Yeah, there's the fucking Riddlers going up in there.
There's on the Reform website for the East Renfrewshire candidate. Which is like Twitter egg. It was just a question mark. There's no photo. There was a photo in the Barhead News, but it looked like some stuff had been. It looked like it had been sort of fuzzed out. You know the way when you have that sort of thing to fuzz out your background when you're in a Teams meeting.
Yeah.
Kind of looked like that had happened to remove his background, but it could literally have been any man in his 60s. And no LinkedIn, no Twitter, no.
I think it's
nothing.
Obviously, like fuck Reform, but I do think that's quite a funny troll if they have actually done that. I really wanted years ago to do like at the National was like, let's just like fire all the columnists and just we'll have one really good writer that would write 6 different people. And I thought that was a much better business strategy. Just pay one salary and then get more money in. I thought that would work very well. And then I wanted to try and get the trolling so hard where you'd try and convince like these were real people and see if we could get like invited on Question Time and just do the whole thing as an Andy Kaufman performance piece, I think.
I do know at least one person who was in my area who had stated that actually he was going to vote for him. His sister was telling me this. And I was like, what the fuck's wrong? And she's like, I don't know. I think he's just hit an age. He's just... And I was like...
Wakes up at 59 like
one of those degenerative diseases that kicks in at a certain age.
Fascism just like clicks in for certain men.
I saw him 50 odds. I saw him a few days later because he came over when I was at hers. I went, I hear you're a racist now. There's no talking to people who looks at the legacy of the Tories over the last 14 years and decides that the issue is they weren't racist enough. Yeah. They should have been more racist. Actually, that was the whole problem.
That was the concern of it. Obviously, they didn't do that well Reform, but yeah, there was a bit of a concern of...
Well, they did very well in some seats. They did very well up here, but one of the issues with it... So, I mean, these were paper candidates, so it may well be that they just made up some names, but I think it's much more likely that they just had paper candidates who didn't live in the constituency at all. And that's actually not illegal. That's not a problem. It probably should be, but we're into the realms of lawful.
I know, it's weird how we brought in like voter ID at this election,
but not candidate ID.
Tightened that one up.
I mean, you don't have to. Farage's tagline should be, "It's not illegal, but it probably should be."
Yeah. But whose fault is it that it's not illegal? It's not Nigel Farage's.
No.
You know?
I'd love that on a billboard. His big stupid smiling face with that quote. Fantastic.
Awful, but lawful.
Yes.
But you don't need to actually prove that you are a real person to stand. You just need 10 signatures.
That's fucking ridiculous. I didn't know that until you told me that today. So yeah, I did this whole voter ID thing. Meanwhile, you can actually fake the
You need ID
candidates.
to vote. You don't need ID to stand.
Yeah, basically, it's like signing up for a Twitter account. There's no verification or authentication going on here whatsoever.
More than Twitter in that you do need 10 people. But the problem is that, 10, you can get 10 people to sign.
I'll give you all 10 quid if you just sign this piece of paper that says this is a real man and not a fucking made up scarecrow person or whatever. You know? Maybe we should do this. We should run the country by trying to hide, because get 10 people
The issue is
to sign up all these fake people.
So,
and then,
I mean, lots of parties run paper candidates, and that is not illegal. And the concern was really that in some constituencies, because of the kind of swing for reform, in some constituencies, the margin of victory for one candidate or another was less than the vote that went to reform. So if it was an invented person, feasibly that election should be run again. Now, I don't actually think they were invented people, but I as I say, I think they were probably simply paper candidates who were party members of Reform but don't live in the constituency because they couldn't get anybody else to stand. But an issue is...
Free's just gone, oh, fuck. Yeah, he's realised it's fine. He says, I'm sure you're having fun without me, but he's remembered.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that.
Oh, was that today?
Yes.
Yes.
Or he just read it, so oh well, that's fair enough. It's good that he'll be back again.
Yeah.
Should have next
I
time.
thought he might have ghosted us, so I was like, oh, he's alright. I just assume, whenever he does things like this, I just assume he's doing some wild libertarian antics somewhere, like he's drug running or whatever he's doing.
Yeah, he's probably
He's some
just
adventure, you know.
stockpiling
In his bunker. Yeah.
prawn cocktail crisps.
Location. So we don't really know where he lives, so we're just like, I think he's underground somewhere.
Yeah, in a bunker.
Yeah, he's prepped. He'll be the last podcaster standing. We'll all be dead in the Third World War, and he will find a way through it.
Maybe 3D printing hazmat suits.
Yes, exactly.
It's about nuclear fallout.